Hey, comic book collectors. Do you want to protect what you collect? Do you hate when your comic books slide around in your short box, or you need to turn them sideways just so they don't bend or fall over? Well, look no further than Sidekick Supplies. Their product fits firmly inside your comic box, so you don't need to worry. And not only is their product made in the USA, but also ships free directly to your doorstep. Check out our sponsor, Sidekick Supplies, at sidekicksupplies.com and use the code Comic-Con15 for 15% off your purchase. Believe me, you'll be ordering more than one.
Welcome to the one and only Comic-Con Podcast, your podcast for comic book news, reviews, and comic community drama, with your hosts, Nemesis Prime and Milton the Manimal. Are you listening?
These aren't the droids you're looking for, but it is a Star Wars content review of The Acolyte. What is going on, everybody? Yeah, the little bonus content. Figured it's easier to do a complete review of Star Wars The Acolyte on a separate episode because we would probably spend way too much time, and we are going to spend a lot of time talking about this 8-episode TV series that just ended on Disney Plus. Zach, do you want to say anything before we get us started?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously, there's been a lot of talk about this show, I want to say a lot of differing opinions. There definitely hasn't been. I mean, before we get into the review, obviously, there's been a lot of unhappy people. And then I feel like there's, what this show, before we really dive into it, this show really directly, or like the response to the show directly reflects like the political climate right now. You know what I mean? Like it's everyone's entrenched. Like you got the people who are like, this show sucks, it's horrible, you'll never convince me it's going to be better. And then you have the people who are like, oh, you guys, I like it because you guys hate it. It just feels like there's like the two camps. And I haven't heard anyone in the middle be like, hey, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too great. It was, I kind of liked it. It's either like horrible or, oh, you guys are trolls, so
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So let's, I'm going to do the Joker quote. Let's turn back the clocks. So we started this podcast in 2021. Our first fucking episode was about the High Republic, and it got announced in 2020 that they were doing a High Republic show, or like a show, and Leslie Headland was going to be doing some stuff, and we had no idea what it was going to be.
Right.
Then it got announced months later that it was going to be The Acolyte. That was the name of it. We still had no idea what it was. And then later on, they started hiring people like actors and actresses, and they said, okay, it's going to be the High Republic. It's going to be about 100 years before this. And we were like, all right, cool.
There was always hints that it was somewhat dark side as well. That it was like a dark side themed type movie, show, whatever.
And then even like there's the things where Leslie Headland said it's Kill Bill meets Frozen, and we're like, all right, well, yeah, that was what it is. Because
I've never heard that. Now I'm like thinking about it, like in reference to this.
Okay,
like,
see,
where
I'm gonna drop a lot of stuff.
Where was that?
I think this was at like Star Wars Celebration that year, 2021, or something like that. But that's what it is because of, all right, so obviously Frozen because of the sisters, and Kill Bill because there's just a shit ton of kung fu in this series. Now, past that, you and I both read pretty much the majority of the High Republic Phase 1 books, I would say, at least the
Minus
young adult.
the YA stuff,
Yeah. And even Phase 2, I don't know how much you read on that. So
not many. No, I kind of dipped on those.
And and Phase 3, definitely nothing. But so with that being said, we kind of went into the High Republic, we were excited about it, so please, again, this opinion by us at least has some type of clairvoyance of the fact that we did read, the High Republic, and we know what the High Republic is all about. There's no Sith. It was all about the Nihil. You're like, this is cool. This is a time of peace. This is a time of noble Jedi and everything else. With that being said, let's kind of get into the review a little bit. And now just think about this. Now, Leslie Headland is the writer, showrunner, and executive producer of this show. $180 million, double the amount that it cost to make Obi-Wan. It is also the least watched Star Wars of the past 6 shows, just so you know. And 22, if you really think about it, $22.5 million an episode, which is more than the cost of the Godzilla Minus One And also, I had to tell Zach this, that he didn't know this, but Vanestra Rowe is Leslie Headland's wife.
Okay, yeah.
So if you want to know where all this money's going for, we're going to find out as we do
Which,
this.
and also reference point, kind of like to give her, which is wild on those numbers that it's like more than like the Obi-Wan show, right? So, and you got to consider with Obi-Wan, you're talking two big actors, right? You're bringing back Ewan McGregor, who
Mhm.
can't be a pretty penny, like can't be cheap as an actor, and uh, oh gosh, mind blank, Hayden Christensen as well. Like you're paying some big name actors in that show. There was no big name actors in the show. The biggest name was the guy from Squid Game, and he's new to like American cinema, if you will. So,
Yeah.
and not to mention there was good special effects in the Obi-Wan Anakin as well. Like, okay. Anyways, that's wild to me that this, and we'll talk about some of the budget stuff here moving
Yeah.
forward. Just in reference point, like think about that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we're not trying to, this is our opinion. We're not trying to sway anybody. We're going to just kind of discuss it and also maybe open up some people's eyes. Cause obviously that's what I'm doing with Zach is I'm dropping this information and Zach doesn't know certain things. So, I guess, where do we want to start? Do we want to start like the beginnings, the middle, the end, and kind of
No,
like where we were, like when we,
I don't think we got to break it down episode by episode. I think we
oh,
can
I'm not
just kind
talking
of,
about that
yeah.
either, but
So I guess let's talk about where we were like going into it, the hopes. Like I was really excited about this. I think out of all the properties that had kind of been announced over these past since we started the podcast, let's say, um, I think this was the one I was most excited about. And that's even saying like the Ahsoka, the Mando season 2 and all that stuff. Like I was kind of looking forward to this because we talked about this on other stuff too. Always kind of been like, it would be great to see something a little bit more focused on like the dark side and the Sith or whatever, whether it has to be Sith or whether it's dark side, whatever. It would kind of be a good focus because we see so much of the Jedi and we see all that. Like that's what I was really excited about. I was really excited about this show. I thought, man, this is going to be awesome. A little bit more focused on the bad guy stuff. But so it, and I don't know, that's not really what we got.
yeah, it's like leading up to it. Like same thing. Like I was excited, they interviews like last year at Star Wars Celebration, and then just things like little things. You're like, oh, this is going to be cool, and then
Mhm.
things start to interject. Right, you start to
Right.
hear about things that is, wokeism. Then we saw that first trailer, and I even was like, ooh, I was like, this doesn't look that good. And then the second trailer came out. I was like, all right, well, all right, got me. It's got me
Yeah.
interested. It's definitely a little bit different, a little bit better. First two episodes kind of came in and I was like, okay, I'm with it for the most part. But then like, yeah, that episode 3 kind of kicked in where it was all just downhill from there. So
Um, but let's look because I feel like it's pretty evident that we're going to go more on like the negative side of this. So maybe let's start with actually like some positives.
sure.
Let's maybe start that way, like some things we liked about it. I can say so. There are a few things I actually did enjoy about this show. I enjoyed first off. I thought the lightsaber battles were awesome. I thought those were really fucking cool. I know some people complained about like the and definitely in the first episode with uh, Trinity, whatever I can't remember her
Oh, May and
May and
Indara.
Indara, yeah, Master Indara. That there was like too much kung fu. You know what? Like I thought that was kind of cool. Still, like I actually enjoyed it. Obviously, we like lightsabers and stuff, but I do like good kung fu battles and fights, and I liked the hand to hand combat that occurred in this show. And I loved the mixture of both the hand to hand combat with the lightsaber, with the stranger kind of using his helmet. Like I liked all that stuff. I thought it was awesome. So like the fight choreography, I thought was great throughout the whole show. I have no complaints really about the fight choreography. Um, I also liked the villain of the show. Like I thought his story was compelling. What little bit we got, um, I think the rest of the show muddied the waters on him. But
Mhm.
I thought him as like I'm moving forward from there. Like I'm still very interested in his character. Like out of that show, I'm like, cool. I'm interested in this guy. Like I want to know more about this guy. And
Mhm.
I did like Master Soul as well throughout the show for the most part. Um, that's probably kind of what I can really say. Like the things that the big things I liked about it. And then I mean, I definitely have like a lot of things I didn't like about it. What about you? What'd you like?
There's not much to be said for what I actually like. Like, I want to take this entire show and just kind of go and be like, you know what, this isn't canon. I'll never watch this again. This is like Legends to me. It's like almost like Star Wars Visions, where it's not canon. It's just out there in the ether on Disney Plus. You know, like I was okay in the first two episodes with the idea of twins and like Force users, because we've seen that in the Old Republic. For anybody that knows the Old Republic, there's two guys, whatever, that are, you know, part of the Empire at that time, many years ago, way long time ago, and that's a PC game. And their father is like a descendant of a Sith, and they don't know that, but they end up, you know, they look like they're good, but eventually one turns bad, one turns good, and then one gets killed. The other one kills each other. So you're like, all right, this is cool. Like they've kind of done this story before, where we've seen, you know, twins, and you've always wanted to see that, I guess, in live action, like good and the dark side.
Right.
And
Two people who are close, one go good, one go bad.
yeah,
And like
not like a brother, you
repercussions.
know, not like
Yeah.
a brother and sister thing. It's straight up like twins. So that's cool. And that's all I got really for what I liked about the show, to be honest. Dude, I really don't know what to say. There's
You
just
didn't like the fight scenes?
that really didn't do it for me. Like there's
Not
times
do
where
it for you, but I mean, like, did you enjoy them? Like,
They're
they were done well, weren't they?
all right. So if I wanted to watch a kung fu movie, yes. If I want to watch a Star Wars show movie, I don't want to need to see kung fu. That's not what this is. The lightsaber battles, they're all right. I think the first one with with Khmer and all the Jedi was just terrible, because there's times where, I don't know, he's just like fighting, and the Jedi look terrible like to fight. I guess realistically the coolest thing was Khmer fighting Jackie. Like that's the only thing that was badass for me. Like that was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Like she's got two lightsabers. He, you know, splits that lightsaber in two, and he's got like the two different. This is like a new style lightsaber. Other than that, yeah, that's all I got.
So that kind of point you're kind of leads into one of like I've got pretty much two. I wrote some notes. Two big things that I mean, I could go on and on and on. We can go ad nauseum kind
That's
of
the
about like,
idea.
what was bad about this, right? But like I have the two big points, and this kind of goes into one of them. One of the biggest things I disliked about this was the Jedi in general. Like one, their depiction, one, the way they were represented as, you know, we've talked about it on the side, like emotional, like they're so emotional, which is like so anti what the Jedi have always been about. Like every one of these Jedi had so much emotion, which I just found which makes sense when you can have one, right? Like one guy, like if the whole show, Saul was the one who like had the emotional connection, is like, oh, you know, he loved her a little too much, as you kind of, I guess that was the theme at the end, right? Like that makes sense. But then you also had Tobin had way too much emotion. You know, they all did. They all were feeling too much all the time. That was really bugged me. The other thing also, and like, this is going to be kind of maybe a dick statement. And, you know, I don't really care because it's the truth. The people they picked for these actors, these Jedis, I wrote down my notes, weird Jedis. And I'm going to read you what I wrote on my notes. I put the fat one. So there was the really fat guy, the really fat Jedi who was like a Padawan or something when they were in the streets of that city. Like, what are we doing? Why did we cast like a morbidly obese guy as a Jedi? And then you had the other, like, you saw him a lot in the last episode. He was throughout the series. Like, I put the ugly one with bad teeth.
Oh,
who was
Mog.
like with Sinestro
Mog.
Row, and he was like, "Oh, it's just like I suck, dude." There was nothing that screamed Jedi about this dude at all. It was so crappy. And then also to kind of tie into the point of like the money as well. Something I noticed was I felt like there was a surprising amount of humanoid Jedi in this show, with only the exceptions being Vern being green, still humanoid. So you basically just colored their skin. Jackie, still humanoid with like some spikes in her forehead. And then Kelnaka. Other than that, almost every single Jedi was a humanoid. You don't see that in other Star Wars movies. There's always the alien race Jedi. And I don't feel like we got this here. And so then once again, that brings up, where was this money spent? Because it wasn't spent on like makeup and CGC or CGC. Damn, I can't even say it.
CGI.
CGI, CGC. A 2.4. That's what this got. 2.4.
Ooh.
Yeah, where was the money spent on this? With all these, I mean, literally that scene, both the big fight scene in the forest with all the Jedi, and the big fight scene of when or not fight scene, but when Vernestra gets all of her knights to go. It's all dudes. It's all, I mean, it's all humans. It's all humans. There's not one alien there,
Mhm.
except for green skin Vernestra Row. Like, that's so dumb, dude. But so that's my one big complaint, and then I'll talk about my other biggest problem with this show. But go ahead.
This show, all right, this is just I want to rip this apart so bad. And I'm gonna, because it's finally time. Like typically we do, like the preview show, and then we do like a mid-season, and then we do the final review. And we just went right to the final review. But the writing is so bad, and I agree with you. The emotion that these Jedi have are just absolutely terrible.
All of them. Yeah.
All the lore breaking is just wild. Like there's just so much stuff in the lore, like just the whole thing with like Kyoto Mundi and like we haven't seen the Sith in 1,000 years, and it's like, dude, he literally says that in episode 1, and I rewatched like Phantom Menace like 2 weeks ago or something like that, and I'm just like, wow, this movie is like so good. And then just there's so many things that don't make sense that they go back on. Like, first of all, like episode 3 and episode 7 are pretty much rehashes. Like episode 7
Yeah.
was just a rehash of episode 3, just from like a different point of view. Like
with
again,
really
that's
very
where
new content. Yeah.
yeah, like where again the money that was spent on this show, I don't even know where it goes. It went right to Leslie, because she did everything. Um, the idea of saying this guy was a Sith, and then like kind of turning back, it's like, no, he's not a Sith. No, he flat out says it in like the next episode. So everybody that's like, oh well, it's not a Sith. Maybe he's not. No, he is. God,
Or at least he
like,
thinks he is, which is good enough.
okay, like, all right, so then now, like, all right, so he obviously used to be Venestra's apprentice, right? Padawan,
Mhm.
and he has these scars, and it's like, you're gonna tell me that she has a whip, that she whipped this guy, and he survived, and now he's like a Sith, like, he trained himself, or somebody trained him with the powers of the dark side. Just blows my mind. Like, I don't get it. Um, the Like the last episode, there was just way too much that went on. Like, you see that, like, everybody now knows that there's like Jedi dying, and all these Jedi die throughout all these episodes.
Mhm.
And the one person that never felt this was Yoda. Like, he felt it in episode 2 when Anakin was killing the Tusken Raiders. He felt it in episode 3 when he turned to the dark side. He feels it when it's Order 66. Ahsoka feels it. Maul feels it in Clone Wars. What's fucking Cal Kestis's paddle? His master. I can't think of his name. Topin. He feels it in the video game, but Yoda doesn't feel any of these guys dying. Come on.
Yeah, that last episode they crammed way too much in, and
That's
like
always.
even the introduction of like, and I'm not saying this is a bad character or whatever, but like that last episode they introduced all of a sudden now you're supposed to care about this, like as the show's supposed to be wrapping up, right? They're like, hey, guess what? Check it out. Here's a senator, and he's real pissed at the Jedi, and so you're supposed to like, wait, now I got to care about this storyline. Like, how does this make any sense? And then at the end, it's like, hey, we were just really watching the Jedi now. And it's like, where were you episode? Like you said, where were you when they died in like the third episode when like 9 of them got killed or whatever,
Yeah.
in the woods. Yeah, it was just way too much crammed into that last episode.
There's too much hidden stuff that I just don't understand. The Sith being compassionate, like Khmer, like being compassionate for May or Osha, like, doesn't make sense. Like, they're ruthless.
Yeah.
That's garbage.
They didn't lean into that heavy enough. It like I get it if he's like, okay, like I really want an acolyte, right?
Mhm.
And I'm focused on them because they have high power sets or whatever. But whatever that was, and obviously that's the point. That's supposed to be the point, but it wasn't written well enough to like drive that point home. I wrote down, so this is like my biggest complaint about the show, and it has to do with exactly what you said, like the writing. Okay, now this show, honestly, if you'd have taken out the characters of May and Osha from this show, it'd have been a good show. Like, it might have been a really good show. This is the crappy writing that occurred. I'm gonna give you a quick breakdown of the character of May. So May starts off the show. She's killing Jedi, right? She wants revenge. Boom, boom, boom. We get to episode 2 or 3. She's walking through the woods with Kamir. She has a change of heart. Oh, you know what? I don't want to do this. This is bad. I'm going to turn myself in. She gets to a hut. She finds a dead Wookiee Jedi. All of a sudden, shit, you know, hits the fan, and she's handcuffed. And now, after she was planning on turning herself in and facing the music, she's now running through the woods randomly. Oh, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. They finally get her. They catch her, or no, sorry, they don't catch her. She switches places, and now she's back on the original mission. Oh, I'm going to switch places, and now I'm going to go on the ship, and I'm going to kill the one last Jedi I haven't killed. So she gets on the ship. Like you said, 2 episodes of like a flashback episode. She's handcuffed. She gets out of the handcuffs. Okay. And now she's on this ship all alone with the Jedi that she positioned herself to be against. What does she decide to do? Kill him? No, she doesn't. She decides to get an escape pod because that makes sense and get out of there and go away. Knowing that this guy wants to take her to Brendock because that's what he's already told her, she gets on an escape pod and tries to leave. Now, once again, she's planning on running away. She even says specifically, oh, I wish there was a hyperdrive on this fucking craft. So there isn't one. So she was planning on leaving. She then goes to the planet, and then everything happens at what happens. So my point is about these characters is these 2 characters aren't even plot points. They are MacGuffins of the show. They're like items, like a infinity stone that was moved around writing wise to move the rest of the story, but they have no purpose, nothing that makes any sense. Their writing of these 2 characters made no sense. The explanation of them being like one person was not explained well enough. Like the idea, you kind of knew like, hey, the one who started bad becomes good. The one who started good becomes bad. Like, okay, that's kind of a cool trope we've seen. Wasn't fleshed out well enough. It didn't make sense. Even Osha at the end, the bleeding of the lightsaber and then the force choking, I felt like all that was once again I feel like this is a response to Rey, right, from the sequel trilogy. People complained about she was so overpowered. So Leslie and crew decided, well, how do we justify them being superpowered and overpowered and OP? Oh, well, they're, what do they call it? The transcendence or transvergence or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then that's why they're powerful. So we have to give a reason. We don't really explain it super well. Lesbian witches, but it just was bad writing, man. And I feel like
May was so bipolar.
So she made no sense, dude. I'm sorry. Sorry I threw that lamp and burnt the whole place to the ground, and killed all these people and then changed my mind 4 times. It made no sense.
Even Osha, who's no longer a Jedi or Padawan or apprentice, has no connection to the Force, and then all of a sudden at the last episode, she becomes like this crazy powerful person that can destroy Saul, who's a Jedi master, who can bleed a crystal. And we've only really seen bleeding done in the comic books. And even when we've seen it, it's been done by Vader. And it's also been extremely impossible to do or very hard to do. And even with Luke, it's the same thing. It's not just like I get mad and I squeeze my hand and the lightsaber just changes. Yeah. And then she's got the force choke ability. That's just makes no sense. And then my favorite,
she cut off from the Force. Like that's even kind of like, she couldn't feel the Force the whole show. She couldn't even in the jail cell get the key or whatever.
Yeah,
like it just
all of a sudden you have Jedi powers again, and and especially like the emotion, like that emotion, just because you were so good the first 7.5 episodes, and then all of a sudden like you hear that Saul like killed your mom, you just automatically like switch like it's like a complete 180, and that's there's no way that you can do that. One other thing that I really think is very interesting is that in Leslie Headland's world that we have the Men in Black Star Wars, because we can completely mind wipe somebody with the ease of some Padawan dark side guy can just like completely get rid of an entire person's mind.
Yeah.
Which, okay, people are going to be like, well, it's been done in Legends. Yes, it was done to Revan twice. One, because he had a crazy injury and it took the entire Jedi Council.
Yeah, I was going to say by the whole council.
Yeah, it's not just like one person. And how bad of a person do you have to be, especially like Osha, who's been good this entire series, and then you're just like, "Oh, we're gonna wipe your mind and let these people capture you."
It
And
just
like,
yeah, it also doesn't make sense character-wise, like, May, who has been, like, throughout the show, she's, like, the one with the most drive, so to speak,
mhm.
right? She's like,
Oh yeah,
vengeance, boom, and then at the end, she's just like, "Well, I'll go ahead and just get mind wiped." Once again, it's like, "What, dude?" Like, it's bad writing, and I feel like the problem is we talk about this a lot with comics, and because when we talk crap on comics, like, we live in a society these days where you can't be judgmental on anything because if you do, you're, you know, one of these phobes or
mhm.
you're a bigot or you're a hater or you're toxic or what a troll or whatever. If this is bad writing and like I'm not for the most part, we're not even attacking the wokeism that occurred in this show because honestly, after seeing the whole show, that's the least of the problems of the show. Like the writing is just not good. The storytelling is just not good. Even Vernestra's character was weak as shit, like the whole show. And then and then we get to the last episode, and she's a prominent character, right? So like now you're supposed to care about this character. Keep in mind, you've also only showed her whip one time. I'm guessing we are probably among the majority of people, or I'm sorry, the small percentage of people who have read as much of the High Republic and would even know going into the show that Vernestra Rowe has a whip lightsaber.
Yeah.
They showed it once, and you're supposed to correlate and put that together that Kamir has, whip lightsaber scars because of that. Like, and then like I said, episode 8, she came off as a villain, in my opinion. I was like, hey, is she gonna end up being like the dark side user here in this? Like, I thought she was gonna almost be like a Palpatine role for a second because they just did not display her character well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Way too emotional towards the end, and yeah, especially her. Like, again, like you're gonna tell me there's no other people on the Jedi Council that understand like what's going on and like what she's doing, and then she gets to the planet, and she gets to the planet to where like everything happened like 16 years ago, and it's just like, oh, okay, I can feel it. I can feel all this because there's like a big vergence on this planet that
yeah,
is explained in an interview that this planet overpowers the witches. Like that's why they went to this planet. So that's why they had the abilities. So if that's what it does, if it amplifies, that's what I was trying to look for. Amplifies their abilities, wouldn't it amplify the abilities of Jedi on that planet as well? And like why is like Soul just so about like, oh, I got to get these kids or he's there's so much. And then like we didn't even talk character wise. Like let's just look at it this way. Like Kelnaka is a Wookiee Jedi. The first time we get to see a Wookiee Jedi, and he has trouble fighting a Padawan in Torben 16 years ago. Like pins him up against the wall, and then Torben's in like this cockeyed position with his arm, and he's like holding back this Wookiee Jedi's lightsaber. Yeah, that's no way. There's no way Jedi Master and Kelnaka is, barely holding his own. No way. And then even why did he die? Why did he kill himself? There's no explanation for any reason why some of these characters killed themselves. Like,
well,
I
did
don't
he
get
kill
it.
himself or did Kamir kill him?
No, he took the poison.
Oh,
They gave
Torben.
him the
Yeah, Torben. Sorry, I
Torben.
thought you were talking about Kelnaka.
But even like that, like
Yeah, because he's emotional. Like, what's he's like, oh, I can't do it. I'll go ahead and just drink this poison. Like, that made no sense. Like, either. Like, he's in this like force bubble, right? Like, no one can touch me. No one can get. I'm meditating on
mhm.
my issues, which makes sense. We've seen that before. Okay, but then why? Yeah, why was he like? Well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and drink this poison. Like,
And he was such a bitch when he was a Padawan, man. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to do this mission anymore. I want to go
I wanna go
home."
home.
Like,
Yes,
what
it
are you
was like,
talking about? You again, that's why the
I just-
emotions in any of these Jedi are so pathetic because we know that Jedis are the Padawans, whatever, the younglings, they're taken when they're so young, so they don't have attachment, they don't have emotions. Like they're taught this. And it's not like he's like a brand new Padawan, like a tiny little kid with like a lightsaber. He's like,
yeah.
in his
He's about
teens.
Jedi Knight. He's about done with the Padawan at this point.
Yeah, and he's just, like, such a bitch, like, he's such a baby about everything,
Mhm.
and,
"Well, I miss my
uh
room." It's so stupid. Yeah, and then, like, the end stuff, right? Like, so the 2, like and it felt like too little too late, right? And also kind of like, well, this is how I'll placate that. Like, I feel like I can read Leslie's mind when she's like, well, I know how I'll placate these fans. We'll let them see the back of Yoda's head and we'll show Darth Plagueis in a cave. And it's like, but you think that saves you? Like, you think that saves you? Like, if you would have given explanations like, okay, well, this is why we didn't have Yoda, and like you said, why he
Oh, they
didn't
did.
feel.
He was the reason why Mundi was in that episode instead of Yoda because of the budget.
Well, I meant like story wise, but yeah, budget,
Oh,
because
well,
all
that's
that money went towards the humanoids, right?
yeah.
So, God, but and then like even if you would have fleshed out maybe some more of the Darth Plagueis stuff with Kamir, like that would have a lot of that would have saved the story. Like there are ways to fix the lore and kind of like plug the holes that they had if you would fleshed out the story more. And they just
Kamir should have
chose not
died
to
at the
do it.
end. Like Plagueis should have just saw him and been like, "Yeah, you're done." Like he just needs to. That's the way it is in the books. Like he in the books, Plagueis, um, and which is canon, which is a novel. He is searching the galaxy. There's like 6 or 7 different Sith that are at that time, and he's looking for the most powerful one, and he ends up picking Palpatine. But
Mhm.
in that book, he goes and kills off the other ones because he's like, "You're not my. I don't want you. I can't take you as my apprentice. You're too weak."
Yeah.
So like that's literally what they're gonna do. Is they introduced him. So now is he gonna? I don't even want to talk about a season 2. Like I want this to be a one and done because I want this to just be so bad. Um, but like that's what should have happened. Like he should have just killed off everybody at the end because the Sith shouldn't be around because that's what Mundi says in episode 1. If you've read the comics, even in like Darth Maul, the original 5-issue miniseries, like when he fights that Jedi at the end of issue 4 and 5, like Palpatine like literally tells him, he's like, "You used your saber." He's like, "You could have exposed this." He's like, "Next time you do that, I will kill you." That's the whole thing, is like
Mhm.
they're not meant to be around. And now like all these Jedi have seen lightsabers. They know about it. Like you're gonna tell them you're gonna hide all this from the council? Come on. I just can't, bro. I just can't.
Yeah.
Such a
Well,
shitty shit.
you going back to the council and like the Vernestra Rowe stuff too, like how suspect does that make her? So like Vernestra Rowe was totally cool with like going back and like just lying to everyone and saying like, yeah, like that is so un Jedi code at all. Like her being like, yep, nope, none of it was there. It was just one guy who went rogue
Yeah.
and he killed everyone.
I
And
don't
like
get that. They made the
that makes no
Jedi look like
sense
jokes.
either. Yeah. I don't, it feels like that was the point of the show. Also was like to poke holes in the Jedi because it definitely seemed like even with the shitty writing they had, it almost felt like they were trying to show you this is case in point. Like the thing that pisses me off the most, and I rant about this all the time, is like trying to like give you reasons why these bad guys aren't so bad. You know, like it almost like they tried to show you, like, hey, look, you know, Kamir was wronged. Like she whipped him with a lightsaber thing, and now he's a bad guy. But you know what? Like, look at these mean Jedi and the fat one and the lame one, you know, with the messed up teeth. Like, I don't know, dude. It's just so stupid. It's
It was a
I don't know.
$180 million therapy session for Leslie Headland. Literally what it was. Basically what it was.
And this isn't even to talk about like not even all the antagonistic posts and like comments and interviews that her and the staff and the cast and like made as
Mhm.
well. Like I know a lot of people, and I agree, people don't need to be toxic out there and stuff, but like at the same time, like you don't get to say you don't get to be Leslie and the actresses and the actors and whoever. You don't get to be these people and be like, "Hey man, stop being so toxic," but then also go out and purposely be antagonistic to fans. Like
Mhm.
that's that's how things work, man. If you poke and poke, you're going to get a reaction. You can't be like, that's like, hey, I poked this bear and then he bit me. Well, yeah, no shit. Like that's what they do. So I don't like that. I don't like this like it's like the victim mentality of like, hey, don't say anything mean, man. You're toxic and bad. Like, well, you know, I don't know what to tell you.
But if we don't say anything bad, like if you don't talk about it as if it's bad, then how it just then it won't get made. Like if
Right.
everyone's, and again, this goes back to comics and things that we've talked about before. If everybody's a yes person, everybody's like, it's great, it's great. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Everything can't be great. Like, yeah, okay, fine. Maybe there's parts of this that people will like. There's gonna be parts that people don't like it. And there's like the people that really hate it, but everybody has to have their opinion. So yes, I mean, there's a reason why it's at like 15% on audience like review. It's like, oh, it's review bombing. No, it's not. It really is. The good majority of people know that it's terrible writing, and the people that go and review this and say, like I read some review today. Oh my god, it was so they were like something about, because Obi-Wan, Boba Fett, and Ahsoka were like fan service, and this is like being so great because it's been a time of, what we really need because of what has happened after like 2019. It's like what happened after 2019. Oh, that's right. The trilogy, the sequel trilogy that was just garbage, and
Mhm.
now we're getting more garbage. No, no, no. The reason why those other shows were made because some of them were already scheduled to be like movies. Like Obi-Wan was originally supposed to be a movie.
Yeah.
Boba Fett was going to be a movie, but they saw how bad Solo did. Even though Solo's not a bad movie, I
I
think
love
Solo's still a
Solo.
great. Yeah, it's still a great movie. It just came out and got no marketing because it was right
Yeah.
before Avengers. Uh, it's just like I don't know, man. The show is bad. Like I'm never gonna watch it again. It's the same way I feel about Star Wars Visions season 2. Like I watched it, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Like, but I'll go back and watch season 1 because I love season 1. Just
Mhm.
it's a bad show. At the end of the day, like people need to be honest and be open. And yeah, like don't. I mean, shit, we could literally sit here and go through every comment that I did on my reels that has like hundreds, thousands, and I would love to just read everybody's comments. And because I never comment back. I just listen to people, and people go back and forth all day, and new people come on and listen. It was a bad show. It
Yeah.
was written poorly at the end of the day.
I think
And
what we've learned, or the lesson we should learn from Disney, is like 'cause I'm 100% in agreement with you about like you have to critique things, and that's how it gets better. But I think we're fooling ourselves if what we've seen from Disney, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, whatever the hell they're putting out, Disney doesn't care. Disney's like, screw it, we'll just keep losing money. I don't know what's gonna change them, man, because they haven't made any money in Lord knows how long.
it's going to
Uh,
be interesting if they do any, um, because usually that what happens is, especially with projects like this, there's the views. So the views are completely shit compared to the past 4 or 5 TV series. It's the absolute like this graph was hilarious when you looked at how minutes watched on this series.
mhm,
Then the next thing is when they do marketing and toys and stuff like that. Now I know they did the Black series for this, but like Funko Pops, if there's anything like you're gonna see those bitches on clearance at like Five Below in like a month if they do it. They haven't announced anything. I know the only thing that came out was, but it's like you're not gonna see like cool products for this show, which just goes to show you that they don't care. They don't have like a backing for it. That
mhm.
what is this at the end of the day? Like if they're not making money off of merchandise, like that was the big thing, like with George, like when he created everything and had the deal with Hasbro, he was like, I want the money. And they made such a Hasbro did such a shit deal that's why he made so much money because he made so much more money on the merchandise than the movie itself. Big long term.
Yeah.
And we've seen it. Like every other show comes out with all the Hot Toy stuff and statues. Like, yo, there's no character that I even care to see a statue for, or like a Hot Toys figure. Like, it's like, come on. Like, yeah, they're gonna come out with the helmet. Okay, but other than that, what else is memorable about this? None of the Jedi because they're all dead. There's none of them you could actually care for because they're all gone. And like, do you really care for like May now or Osha
No, me
and
and Osha, like I
Kamir?
said, the show would be a lot better if they wouldn't have been in it. You could have done the same whole story, and honestly, you could have made the bulk of the story about the fact that Kamir had an issue with Vernestra Row. Like that would have been more like interesting. The May and Osha honestly ruined the show. Like
Mm-hmm. Yep.
if you take them out of the show and you made it like Kamir hunting the Jedi, bro, that's a good show. That's a good show.
Yeah, but you gotta do the DEI stuff. Got to throw in the women. Got to throw in black female. Got to do the twins thing. There's a little bit of everything that they got to throw in there just to check boxes, and hopefully people will watch it. But it's not always the best thing to do. Like, and then obviously we didn't even get into the Anakin stuff like that. Real after watching like the first 5 or 6 episodes, and then watching Phantom Menace, and I'm just like, yo, man, they really try to interject like Anakin as the chosen one. They're like, yeah, Leslie's like, I'm gonna create these two chicks who are one person, but they split and they're really powerful. And maybe then this is why the virgins of Anakin, like, yo, really? Like, just so
Yeah.
bad. So
Yeah.
bad. All right. That's it. I'm
I don't
done.
know.
I can shit on this for like 2 hours but
Yeah. Time to
um,
time to put the acolyte in your rear view mirror.
yeah. So hashtag cancel the acolyte. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
People are gonna be talking about this for a good month. of how bad it is. And I'm sorry. Like, and if you like it, feel free to drop us a message and we'll read it why you liked it. And I know there are people people have messaged me based on like my stories and based on like my posts, and that's great. Like, but like, how come this is my final statement? How
Mm.
come we can get amazing video games based on Star Wars, but we can't get a live action show that's created like that's not Ahsoka, that's not Endor, Obi-Wan, any of that stuff. Like something that's completely original, right? Like so we've had Jedi Fallen Order, like even Knights of the Old Republic was original. Um Force Unleashed, all that stuff is original for the most part. How come we can get the amazing writing, but yet you can't do a TV series without completely destroying everything that's come before this?
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm gonna go play Jedi Survivor.
To wash the taste out of your mouth.
Dude,
Yeah.
I would literally rather just go on YouTube and type in Jedi Fallen Order all cutscenes and watch and see how long that is, and rather watch that.
Dude, just
And
yeah,
then
just
go,
make they need to just make a series about that. Like same thing they do with the comics when they do like the Ahsoka miniseries. Like they need to just make it, hey, you know what? Let's do shot for shot Jedi Fallen Order.
oh, and you know that's coming. You know the Acolyte comic book is getting announced, and they are doing it, and it is going to be the worst selling comic book
Ugh,
of any Star Wars book. I can guarantee you that, and nobody's going to want to do an exclusive for it because it was so shitty.
yeah.
Sorry, everybody. That's it.
Well,
Final thoughts for you?
no, I mean that's it. I got no more to really say on it. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, bummed out. I was really looking forward to it, and
Yeah.
it let me down. So
Yeah.
moving on.
All right. Make sure everybody checks out our regular episodes. And then again, we'll be at Terrificon. Please also, if you like, pre-order our exclusive TMNT #1 variant over at jaffcomics.com. And if you don't want to pre-order it and you see us at Terrificon, we'll be there. So
Yep.
thanks everybody for our review of The Acolyte, the greatest Star Wars live action show ever. Later.
Later.
Hey, comic book collectors, do you want to protect what you collect? Do you hate when your comic books slide around in your short box, or you need to turn them sideways just so they don't bend or fall over? Well, look no further than Sidekick Supplies. Their product fits firmly inside your comic box, so you don't need to worry. And not only is their product made in the USA, but also ships free directly to your doorstep. Check out our sponsor, Sidekick Supplies, at sidekicksupplies.com and use the code ComicCom15 for 15% off your purchase. Believe me, you'll be ordering more than one.